The stark visual warning of the climate disaster gathering pace in the Arctic Circle that will impact us all. We're in the fastest warming town on Earth where climate change isn't an out-of-reach concept. Locals just have to look up to see the real-life repercussions.
These massive metal barriers are now a last line of defence because the air here is warming so quickly now. It means this year's winter snow is much more likely to cause avalanches that will come crashing down onto those houses below.
Their warning to world leaders is clear: something must be done.
This is the reality of things. Things are happening, changes are happening, and they are the ones that need to act.
Tonight, in our lead up to COP26 in Glasgow, we'll be in the northernmost point on Earth to see how climate changes there will impact our everyday lives here. Also on News at 10 tonight. Britain's busiest ports are clogged up with delays affecting big businesses like IKEA and Nestle and messing up your orders. It's revealed 1 in 6 of the most critically ill COVID patients are unvaccinated expectant mothers, as pregnant women are urged to get a COVID jab.
Prepare for warp manoeuvres. Nice. Check out.
And when Hollywood meets reality, William Shatner and boldly going where a few men have gone before, to space.
I want to see space. I want to see the Earth. I want to see what we need to do to save Earth.
This is ITV News at 10 with Charlene White.
Good evening. Tonight we begin in the Arctic, where the magnitude of the reality of climate change is becoming ever clearer. Avalanches that were once unthinkable in the densely packed snow are now inevitable. And for the people of Svalbard, hills that have offered protection for centuries now hang over them with a sense of foreboding, ready to crash on the houses below. The Norwegian island and the waters that surround it are warming faster than anywhere else on Earth. And inevitably, what happens to the landscape and wildlife there will directly impact us and the rest of the planet. This month's climate summit in Glasgow may already be too late for this part of the Earth on the edge. The remote terrain of glaciers and frozen ice sheets halfway between Norway and the North Pole can no longer wait for the world's politicians to act. In a moment, we'll be live there with our correspondent Peter Smith. But first, here he is. Here's his report on what it means to heat up one of the coldest places on Earth.
Latitude 78 degrees, polar north. This is the frozen edge of civilization and now the fastest warming place on planet Earth. On Svalbard in the high Arctic, climate change isn't a theory, it is already happening. And this is the consequence. People here must now urgently fortify the northernmost town in the world. Avalanche shields airdropped in. Houses simply bulldozed to make way for a wall because winter now means danger. These massive metal barriers are now a last line of defence because the air here is warming so quickly now. It means this year's winter snow is much more likely to cause avalanches that will come crashing down onto those houses below. This is the threat of climate change already hanging over people here. The avalanche early warning system here has triggered. This snowy ridge will collapse within months. Directly underneath, Svalbard students go to school, a generation acutely aware of what a changing climate means.
At my house, right over the road, we're pretty sure we need to evacuate at the winter because there is going to be danger.
And that's being driven by climate change?
Yeah. It's not been something that has happening before, but we're seeing it more and more.
The leaders of the world are going to be coming to my home city of Glasgow for the COP26 conference. What would you tell them from living here inside the Arctic Circle?
I think we would like them to hear that this is the reality of things. Things are happening, changes are happening, and they are the ones that need to act.
There are other warnings from nature that all is not well here. The Norwegian Polar Institute takes me into an Arctic valley to see for myself why they are concerned.
Bræen is just the Norwegian word for glacier, so this is Longyear Glacier.
This glacier has been here for 10,000 years. Now it's disappearing.
More snow is melting each summer than falls in the winter, so that's why this is a slowly dying glacier. Certainly if we keep going the way we are and we keep getting the warming that's predicted, then this will disappear over decades to the next century.
It used to go all the way to the edge of the ridge here where we can see rocks, bare rocks now.
Yeah, so these rocks are actually piled up by the glacier when it was at its maximum in the late 1800s.
It's doing a lot of melting just in 100 years.
It's almost 4 times as much warming in Svalbard as the global average.
4 times as much.
And that's the annual average. In winter, it's been about 8 degrees of warming here.
We're looking at that right in front of our eyes, the effect of that.
Yes.
Melting glaciers mean sea levels rising, but the polar waters here are also warming up at speed. To understand it, I go out to an Arctic research vessel, crossing the locally named ice fjord, which no longer has any ice. These scientists are seeing changes in plankton, one of the most important species to sustain life on Earth.
People tend to think about polar bears, but it's these guys who are actually a key driver in the ecosystem. So it's almost as if the Arctic ecosystem could be a Jenga tower, and you have these tiny little animals right at the bottom, sort of supporting all of the blocks on top. So if we pull enough blocks out and change the bottom enough, the entire ecosystem, all the blocks would just sort of fall down.
Sea plankton provides more oxygen than all the world's rainforests. Simply humans need it to survive. And this Amazon of the Arctic also supports life here as nourishing food, but it's now being altered. This difference is really striking. This is what the plankton should look like in the Arctic waters, but when it warms up, it's starting to look like this, the Atlantic plankton.
Yeah, it's really like the difference between eating a healthy home-cooked meal and a packet of instant noodles. It just doesn't quite have the same nutritional value. We're seeing the birds, for example, feeding on these less fatty species. You can actually see it a lot in their young. They're not able to rear their young as successfully.
These changes in the Arctic are not contained here. From wildlife to weather systems, our planet is connected to this place. And now the polar winter is coming. When world leaders meet for COP26 in Glasgow, darkness will fall here for 3 months. How quickly they act, how far they go, will determine what kind of spring awaits on the other side.
Peter, this is a big reminder of the pace and dangers of climate change, isn't it? Is it too late to save somewhere like Svalbard?
Well, the stakes could hardly be higher, Charlene, and it's not just our children's children who are at risk. The World Health Organization has tonight released a report saying the biggest health crisis facing humanity right now is not coronavirus, but climate change. That's what's at stake here. Burning fossil fuels is already killing people. And telling the story from here in Svalbard is rather poignant because this is not, people here aren't just a victim of climate change, they've been a contributor. Over the years, humanity came here to hunt whales, to render their blubber for oil, then came mining the coal mines here. In fact, the town of Longyearbyen, the northernmost town in the world, is still burning coal to keep the lights on. They're trying to change their ways, they're aiming to go green within the next 5 years, but in a twist of irony, the last working coal mine here recently flooded from melting ice, nature's last revenge. But they are trying to change their ways because they've seen what's happening and they are urging the world to follow suit. They need the world to change for this place to survive.
We won't keep you that much longer, Peter, because I can see it's very cold where you are. But there definitely feels like a sense of urgency with that climate conference in Glasgow in a few weeks' time. So what do they need to achieve there?
Well, Charlie, we know what's at stake and we know what needs to happen. The science is clear. The more carbon emissions there are in the atmosphere, the warmer the world gets. And there hasn't been this much carbon in our Earth's atmosphere since 3 million years ago. And the world is warming up, so it's no coincidence. The big contributors to this are China, the US, the UK, India. Those are the countries that are bringing a lot to the table. But coming here, Charlene, I've learned that this is just the start. When the world's leaders meet in my hometown of Glasgow, they know what they need to do, and the whole world is watching.
OK, Peter, thanks very much. Here, 3 major companies have confirmed to News at 10 that they're having problems because of a huge backlog at the country's biggest container port. IKEA, Nestle and General Mills, which makes Haagen-Dazs and Old El Paso, can't get their shipments because there aren't enough lorry drivers or staff to move their goods through Felixstowe in Suffolk. Shipping containers that should pass through in hours are now taking an average of 9 days. And if the congestion doesn't ease, the port says it could start turning ships away.
Port of Felixstowe calls itself the Port of Britain, and it is a vital gateway for trade. More shipping containers come and go here than anywhere else in the UK. So severe congestion at this port is a problem.
Would you mind parking up tonight and starting at 3 o'clock in the morning, please?
Part of the problem is, you've guessed it, a shortage of HGV drivers. Adam Searle operates 45 lorries out of Felixstowe, and he's struggling to get things in and out.
It is a definite nightmare that my guys in the office are pulling their hair out every single day. They're working extended hours just to try and deliver what our customers need.
ITV News has learned that the average container arriving at Felixstowe is waiting more than 9 days for collection, twice as long as the average wait last year. Container collections by lorry drivers were down up to 20% on normal in September, creating a backlog of up to 7,500 containers at the port. The port's management is considering turning ships away if the situation doesn't improve.
This is all about labour shortages. The port doesn't have the people it would like to lift containers on and off ships, and haulage firms don't have enough drivers to take all of those containers away. And the result is they are stacking up.
Tonight, IKEA, Nestle and General Mills, the food group which owns the Haagen-Dazs and Old El Paso brands, confirmed they are being impacted by the congestion at Felixstowe. And somewhere in all of these is a container that arrived yesterday from China for Jack Griffiths, who sells clothing online from a warehouse in Stockton-on-Tees. He's been told he'll have to wait another 4 weeks to get his hands on what he ordered.
With us being quite a seasonal business, probably 80% of our annual turnover comes in the colder winter months, and with stock taking an extra 4 or 5 weeks, we're losing a month of sales then, and it's all a bit up in the air for our plans and our growth.
Port of Felixstowe says the vast majority of shipping containers are cleared for collection within minutes of arrival. The port says a shortage of lorry drivers and warehouse space inland means the quay is effectively being used as a storage facility. It's doing what it can to clear the decks.
The port is clogged. Do you think you will have to turn ships away? Do you think it will come to that?
I doubt it will come to that. I very much hope it won't come to that. We're seeing an improvement in the last week already.
You think you'll get on top of this?
I think we're getting on top of it, but it's not we as the port, it's the supply chain. And the biggest problems are not here in Felixstowe.
Tonight, a spokesperson for the government said this is not a problem unique to the UK. Ports around the world are experiencing similar container capacity and supply chain issues. The government says it's working with companies to address the challenges.
But Joel, how and when will they be able to clear this backlog, and what happens if they can't?
Well, a lot of what we buy, whether it's online at the shops and the supermarket, Charlene, arrives at some point in the UK at Felixstowe. Shipping containers there are full of food and drink and clothing and electrical goods. So if the severe congestion that is at the port persists, then at some point it will affect choice, availability, price in the run-up to Christmas. Tonight, the British Retail Consortium told us, in addition, of course, to the fact that IKEA and Nestle are being affected by delays, that retailers are aware of the situation at Felixstowe. We are working closely with suppliers to mitigate issues, including finding alternative routes to bring goods into the country. In some cases, that may be by air. Now, Port of Felixstowe, as you heard there, says it's determined to get on top of this, but it also admits there's a limit to what it can actually do. It can't magic up people, Charlene, to drive these lorries. It fairly points out that congestion is not just the UK problem. Economies around the world opened up, and as they unlocked, we suddenly found that supply and demand everywhere were completely out of kilter. You know, shipping's costs exploded, and ships are queuing, remember, to get into ports in China and the United States, as well as across much of Europe, as well as the UK. It's true there is a lorry driver shortage in most parts of the world too, but in the UK it seems particularly acute. the British Retail Consortium. The government must act urgently to increase the size and scope of the temporary visa scheme for overseas lorry drivers, or there could be further disruption for consumers in the months ahead. Logistics UK, which represents hauliers, absolutely agrees. The government's got to do something.
All right, Joel, thanks very much for that. Well, the head of UK Steel has become the latest to call for the Prime Minister to intervene over rising gas prices. But with Boris Johnson on holiday, it was perhaps no surprise the government's approach hasn't shifted. A bout of infighting between the Business Secretary and the Treasury hasn't helped either. And tonight there were more signs that the argument isn't over. One government source keen on intervening suggested that without urgent support, factories will close and thousands of jobs will be lost.
Red hot glass in one of Britain's most energy-intensive industries. It's easy to see why a massive rise in the price of wholesale gas would hurt here. A factory producing 5 million bottles every day.
We would expect to spend about £40 million in energy normally. If we look forward at this point, we're looking in excess of £100 million going forward.
That huge and sudden increase in cost is pushing some companies to the edge.
We need action, I would say this week, because I'm aware of some companies that are on the brink of going under.
So how could the government help? It could bail out companies directly. Or it could cut green levies, taxes on bills to help fund low-carbon alternatives. It could reduce VAT for a short period. Or put in place some sort of business energy price cap like we have as consumers.
There are real worries on Whitehall. One government source said to me today that factories could close down and thousands of jobs could be lost without urgent support. But they need to persuade the Treasury to step in.
And there's the point of tension. Yesterday, the Treasury slapped down Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng. Today, he put in a formal bid for companies to get support. Ministers say nothing to see here.
The Business Secretary is very, very focused on making sure we are there with business, with industry. I also know the Treasury is very, very focused on effects for the economy and, of course, for families as well.
The Director General of UK Steel, another industry badly hit, says more action is needed now.
I think the current infighting between departments is not helpful, and therefore my message would be directly to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, bang ministerial heads together and you step in directly and take the action that is needed to be taken.
The Prime Minister is on holiday in Spain, presumably quite bad timing.
Now is probably not the best time to be on holiday, and I guarantee you that people in the steel industry are not taking a holiday at the moment.
Downing Street insists that the Prime Minister, reportedly here in Spain, is still working away. But can he solve the problem from this distance? Anushka Astana, News at 10.
A source close to the Duke of York has told ITV News it's no surprise the Metropolitan Police is taking no further action over allegations of sexual assault. Prince Andrew has always denied the claims made by Regina Giuffre. Detectives reviewed the case for a third time after she started a civil case against the Duke in the United States. 1 in 6 of the most critically ill coronavirus patients in England in recent months have been unvaccinated pregnant women. Many hold off getting their jabs over fears not only for themselves but also their unborn babies. But consultants say the pressures of pregnancy increase the chances of COVID complications. They insist taking the vaccine is the safest option.
Being pregnant with your first child is always an anxious time, but having COVID too takes that anxiety to a different level.
I do just remember just saying, I give up, like I can't do this on my own anymore.
At 26 weeks pregnant, Claire caught COVID. So ill, she was put in a coma and on a ventilator for 2 weeks. Medics feared she'd need to be transferred onto a specialist ECMO machine.
My husband was possibly going to lose both of us, or he was going to be a single dad, and that's the truth of it, really. So I had hallucinations when I got woken up, so it's scary to think what COVID has done to us in the long term.
Claire didn't need this treatment after all. Extracorporeal membrane oxygenation is used when ventilation isn't working and patients' blood is oxygenated outside the body. Of the 118 patients in England who've had ECMO in the last 3 months, 17% of them were pregnant women. All but one were unvaccinated, and that one had only received 1 dose. Overall, pregnant women make up a third of all adult women under the age of 50 who've had the life-saving treatment.
You're doing really well. You're going to be just fine.
Dr. Vercoy is having to treat more pregnant women in intensive care at King's College Hospital. They become more seriously ill much more quickly.
There's something about being pregnant that makes our immune systems change and makes us more at risk from viral infections generally. And COVID exploits this. It's also dangerous for their babies because there's an increased risk of miscarriage in women who have COVID.
It's why the NHS is desperate for more expectant mothers to get vaccinated.
Only 10% of pregnant women in the UK are fully vaccinated. Why isn't the message getting across?
I think the message has been going through both our professional circles out into the community, but we really need to keep reminding pregnant women that it's safe to have the vaccine. We've got real world data now.
That is the message they want to get across. The vaccine is safe in pregnancy. COVID is not. Emily Morgan, News at 10.
There's been a long debate about the idea that there are certain toys for boys and others for girls. And over the weekend, California even introduced new rules forcing large department stores to display some aisles in neutral ways. Well, now Lego's announced it's going to remove gender stereotypes from its boxes of bricks.
Hit the top stuff, you get building.
At the brilliant Bricks Club in Hazelmere, the challenge being set is to use imagination and creativity to build a time machine from Lego.
I'm building a forest. I'm also building a gold time traveller car.
Both boys and girls here love playing with the building bricks, but when we ask them to pick their favourite products, there's a definite pattern.
Can you pick up the Lego that's your favourite?
We repeated this experiment twice, and both times the girls went for the pink Lego Friends or Frozen range, while the boys picked Cars and Star Wars.
It's one of my favourite colours and it's yellow, and I like the people. I don't like the Lego Friends because it's a girls thing and it's pink.
Build hotels, animals.
From the start, Lego was marketed to all children, but it proved more popular with boys.
He's a Lego maniac!
And Lego had to introduce new ranges to encourage girls to get involved. Now Lego say they don't want children to be limited by gender stereotypes, to make sure all their products and marketing are free of gender bias.
We could never assume that something is just for boys or something is just for girls. I think we should not be making those assumptions. I think we should continue to develop products that are tapping into the passion points of kids and then play patterns that they really like and the building patterns that they really like, but we need to let them decide.
Lego's stores are set out by themes rather than gender, but the Danish toy giant says there will be some changes to its products and how it pitches them to parents and their children.
So much of it also happens online now, and so again that's where the sort of videos they see informs what they're supposed to be playing with, and that's again where we urge Lego to show a mixture of girls and boys from all sorts of backgrounds playing with their toys.
Building a bias-free approach to play will take time, but the first foundations are being laid. Martha Fairley, News at 10.
One of ITV's longest-serving regional news anchors, Fred Dinage, has announced he's retiring from daily news.
I'm going to miss all of my lovely colleagues here at ITV Meridian, but most of all, I'm going to miss you, our lovely, loyal viewers who've been so kind to me over so many years. But we're not going to be down.
After working in regional and network programmes for 58 years, Fred has become an institution to the viewers of Meridian Tonight, presenting the show since it started in 1983. He'll step back at Christmas and says he plans to spend more time with his wife, his dogs, and in the mountains of Austria. Some survivors who witnessed the darkest depths of the Holocaust made it their life's work to tell others what they'd gone through. They willingly recalled the pain they'd endured so the world would never forget. As the years pass, that living testament is passing itself to history. For those who are left, it's more important than ever that they leave behind their stories. So today at London's Imperial War Museum, a new exhibition opens to draw together testimonies and artefacts of humanity's darkest days.
It has taken 6 years of work, including manoeuvring a V-1 rocket into position to complete the Imperial War Museum's new Second World War and Holocaust galleries, a permanent display to maintain our memories of the conflict and its human cost. There is so much which arrests the gaze here, but one document is truly remarkable: the birth certificate of a baby born at the Mauthausen concentration camp. It belongs to Eva Clark. That piece of paper represents more than just her birth. It is testament to her survival against all odds.
It's very moving, actually. Makes me really rather emotional. Yeah.
This film was shot by American soldiers as they liberated the camp. Incredibly, a few weeks later, they caught these fleeting images of Eva cradled by her mother, Anka.
There are actually 3 reasons why we survived, and the first is a very chilling one, because on the 28th of April 1945, the Nazis had run out of gas for the gas chamber. My birthday was the 29th. So, you know, if the train arrived on the 26th, 27th, I wouldn't be talking to you now. The second indirect reason why we survived is because on the 30th of April, Hitler committed suicide. And the last and the best reason why we survived was because on the 5th of May, the American army liberated the camp.
John Haidu is another Holocaust survivor who helped to translate some documents from Hungarian, including this remarkable postcard thrown from a cattle truck full of Jews bound for Auschwitz.
And how she had the courage to write it, the courage to drop it through the wagon, and for somebody to pick it up and not chuck it, but actually preserve it and try to find the son who then got it. And then eventually from that son, somehow it got to here in London to the Imperial War Museum. It's miraculous.
Among all the poignant artefacts today was one which won't be on display: the teddy bear, which John, as a little boy, managed to hold on to through the ghettos and the camps. Like him and Eva, a witness to the darkest chapter of our history. Dan Rivers, News at 10 at the Imperial War Museum.
Wales secured a vital win tonight against Estonia to keep alive their hopes of qualifying for next year's World Cup. This goal from Kiefer Moore was enough to earn a 1-0 win at Tallinn. It puts Wales level on points in their group with second-placed Czech Republic, but with a game in hand. Finally, as captain of the Star Trek Enterprise, James T. Kirk refused to be held back in his mission to discover the outer reaches of the galaxy. Think cyborgs, Klingons and the Wrath of Khan. But William Shatner's real-life bid to get to space has hit a slight snag: high winds, delaying his record-breaking trip into space.
Kirk here. That sensor ghost is moving closer. On my way.
Famous for playing Captain Kirk aboard the fictional starship Enterprise, William Shatner is about to embark on a real-life space adventure, albeit in slightly more cramped conditions. Along with his 3 crewmates, the actor is preparing to boldly go where no 90-year-old has gone before.
What a thing to have. He's the oldest guy that went into space. I want to have the vision. I want to see space. I want to see the Earth. I want to see what we need to do to save Earth. I want to have a perspective that hasn't been shown to me before.
This will be the second space flight by Blue Origin, the company owned by Amazon founder and Star Trek superfan Jeff Bezos. Bezos was on its first flight in July and has invited Shatner along on this one as his guest. He and his crewmates were due to blast off tomorrow, but they've been delayed by a day because of windy conditions at the launch pad in Texas.
You're going to hear the engine cut off.
And last-minute nerves aren't the only challenge that Shatner is grappling with.
It's a combination of things. It's not all terror, although there's some bubbling elements of that. But also, I'm thoroughly versed in the safety of what we're doing, and we've been spending days here in and out of these very difficult chairs. It's a great workout, getting in and out of these prone chairs.
The flight will take just 10 minutes, much shorter than an episode of Star Trek, and with any luck, a bit less eventful too.
10 seconds to impact.
Chloe Keedy, News at 10.
That's it from us this evening. So from everybody on the team, night-night.
Every home is filled with memories and the people we love. And Eco Fire and Smoke Alarms are here to protect them. In Scotland, fire safety legislation is changing. We want to make sure every home is ready with first-class alarm systems by the deadline on February the 1st. Eco, fire and carbon monoxide detection specialists. Protect your family. Find an approved installer at eco.co.uk.